Welcome back to AllStarBuzz. Thank you for joining us. Before we start, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We are on our way to 10,000 subscribers. Now, let's begin.
Well, I had a different question, but it struck me that in the first segment you used the term woke, and you said that woke is what was sort of ruining everything. And I know that you're
No, I didn't say ruining everything. I said that's why Trump could get reelected.
That's why Trump could get reelected.
Yeah.
So the term woke has been, in my view, co-opted by the right and weaponized and bastardized. And so I was surprised to hear you use the term, because historically, as you know, because I think you're quite brilliant, that woke is a word used by the Black community to note that we must be aware of social injustices.
But words
and
migrate.
So why is that a bad thing?
It's not a bad thing, and originally that was absolutely a great thing. Alert to injustice, who's not for that? But words do migrate. Now, I'll use any term you want,
Okay.
because maybe that is a word that's triggering, and so let's not use that word. I don't know, want to call it the super far left, but don't tell me the left
Or maybe the super far right.
He's
Well,
talking about the left. Well, then
okay.
When Bill Maher appeared on The View, he walked straight into a heated cultural debate and didn't back down for a second. The moment kicked off when Sunny Hostin challenged his use of the word woke. For her, it wasn't just a term, it was a symbol of awareness, empathy, and the fight against injustice. She reminded the audience that woke originated in the Black community as a call to stay conscious of racism and inequality. So hearing someone like Maher use it negatively felt, to her, like a betrayal of that history.
We used to do, well, you did it. I was a guest on what was the homeless show? Comic Relief.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah.
You were, great show.
Yeah.
And homeless was a term that I thought we kind of came up with because people were calling them bums and
Yes.
vagrants and hobos.
Yeah, now that's
homeless.
the word.
Now,
It's
no.
It's unhoused.
Well, it's
now.
people
Unhoused.
experiencing
Now it's unhoused.
homelessness. But they're experiencing it on the street.
Yeah.
Okay, the liberal view of that was, for compassion's sake, we're the liberals, we're compassionate. Let's get these people off the street.
Yeah.
That's not the view of the, whatever word we're going to come up with for this. Their view of the homeless is they're an endangered species that needs to be protected in their natural habitat. Living their best life under a bridge.
Yeah.
You know, that to me is crazy. That's the kind of things, I haven't changed on that. I still think we should get these people off the street. That's
Yes.
the compassion sake. So I didn't change, they changed, and there's lots of examples of that.
But Maher wasn't interested in the original definition. He argued that the word has evolved into something entirely different, a catch-all for extreme ideology that silences people and creates division. While he acknowledged its roots in social justice, he made it clear that woke today doesn't represent progress. Instead, it represents a rigid belief system that punishes dissent, demands purity, and alienates anyone who doesn't follow the script. And with that, Maher opened the door to a much bigger discussion, not just about a word, but about the ideology behind it, and how far it's pushed our culture from reality.
See, I think we're tribal now, which is not good, and I think there's 4 tribes. Basically, there's old school liberals, which I would mostly count myself as, old school conservatives, there's still some of those
You've
left.
changed, though.
Wait, what are the other two?
Go ahead.
What are the other two?
Well, that's what I, well, that's what I was trying to find out in this book. I don't think
Yeah.
I have. And, you know, we were saying in the break, we have to come up with a new word for woke. Let's have a contest, because this is a word that's triggering. But
Maher made it clear that he's not against justice or empathy, far from it. But what bothers him is how the modern interpretation of woke has gone off the rails. It's no longer about standing up for what's right. It's about enforcing a narrow worldview where disagreement is treated as evil. He stressed that this isn't just about vocabulary, it's about control. The term woke has become a symbol for an ideology that refuses to tolerate anything outside its approved narrative. He even said he'd gladly stop using the word if it helps shift the focus back to the actual problem. The issue, he argued, isn't the label, it's the mindset. A mindset that turns good intentions into dogma, that pushes people to self-censor, and that turns open dialogue into a minefield.
What do you make of this moment? What do you think it's a result of? How do we fix it?
well, I mean, it's just astounding to me that they can't tell the good guys from the bad guys. I mean, just morally. I mean, let me tell you, if you're for Hamas, just live in Gaza for a day. And I'm not talking about while the war is on. I mean before the war. Trust me, you would go running and screaming and begging to live in Tel Aviv, a place that has your values. I mean, women have no, I mean, this is a show watched by a lot of women. Women have no rights in this place, and a lot of majority Muslim countries around the world. I mean, there is no equal rights as far as speech, dress, opportunities for education, reproductive rights, freedom from sexual violence, freedom from sexual harassment.
The LGBTQ community as well.
Yes.
That too.
If you don't say exactly the right thing in exactly the right way, you risk being labeled as bigoted, ignorant, or worse. Maher's message was simple. He hasn't abandoned liberal values. Those values abandoned him. The movement that once fought for free speech and critical thinking has, in his eyes, morphed into something authoritarian and irrational. And that shift, he warned, isn't just affecting politics, it's reshaping how we live, speak, and even think.
Are you at all concerned about the innocent civilians that have been collectively punished and murdered, largely children and women? And are you at all concerned about the fact that the International Criminal Court just today issued a subpoena for Bibi Netanyahu?
Well, that's ridiculous, but it's a war.
Why?
It's a war. Because it's a war, and they were attacked, and they're defending themselves. Now, this is a war. Do you think Hamas needs to be destroyed? This is the question.
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
So how can we do that with a ceasefire?
All right, so Hamas needs to be destroyed because they are a terrorist organization who say openly that they want to commit genocide on the Jewish people, on the state of Israel. That's what from the river to the sea means, okay? And they say it very openly. They said, we did this attack. They've attacked Israel 5 times. They've started 5 wars since they were given that land back. They could have chosen to turn that place into any place they wanted to, and they took a lot of money that they took from the international community, and they spent it on bombs and guns and building tunnels.
Taking it a step further, Maher exposed what he sees as the deeper engine driving this shift, a modern version of Marxism, repackaged for today's identity-obsessed culture. Instead of dividing people by wealth or class, this new ideology divides society by race, gender, and perceived victimhood. It replaces the traditional rich versus poor with oppressors versus oppressed, based not on individual actions but on group identity. In this worldview, your moral worth isn't defined by your behavior or character, it's determined by your identity group. If you belong to a historically marginalized group, you're automatically viewed as virtuous. If not, you're seen as part of the problem. It's a rigid system that leaves no room for nuance or personal experience. Maher argued that this way of thinking creates a culture of resentment and division. It teaches people to distrust one another, to assume bad intentions based on skin color or gender, and to believe that oppression is baked into every system and structure no matter how much progress has been made. He pointed out that America, a country that elected a black president twice, is still being painted as fundamentally racist. And that, he said, is not just misleading, it's destructive to the social fabric. To highlight just how far this way of thinking has gone, Maher shared a striking example from his own past, the evolution of how we talk about homelessness. Years ago, calling someone homeless was seen as a compassionate step forward. It replaced harsher terms like bum or vagrant and aimed to restore dignity. It was part of a broader effort to humanize people in need and push for real solutions. But now, even homeless isn't good enough. The preferred term has become unhoused, or people experiencing homelessness. And Maher questioned whether this constant word swapping does anything to actually help people. He argued that we've moved from solving problems to obsessing over how we talk about them. The real issue getting people off the street has been buried under layers of performative sensitivity. Worse, Maher noted that some activists treat the homeless as if they should be protected right where they are, as if living in tents under bridges is a valid lifestyle rather than a crisis that demands action. That's not compassion. He said it's negligence wrapped in good intentions. This obsession with language, with appearing virtuous rather than being effective, is exactly what he believes has hollowed out today's progressive movement. This same logic, Maher explained, has crept into how we handle mental health and gender identity areas where clarity and honesty are absolutely crucial. In the past, being compassionate meant acknowledging that someone was in distress and working to understand the root of it. Now, that has flipped. The only acceptable response is affirmation no questions, no exploration, just acceptance of whatever identity or narrative someone presents, no matter how disconnected it may be from reality. Maher pointed out how this shift has led to a culture where challenging someone's belief even gently, even with concern, is treated as a form of hate. If a teenager believes they were born in the wrong body, questioning that belief is seen as an attack rather than an attempt to understand or help. The line between support and enabling has been erased. And the consequences are serious. When we refuse to talk about what's real, we leave people trapped in confusion. When we make truth off limits, we can't solve anything, we just pretend everything's fine. Maher argued that this isn't kindness, it's cowardice. And in the long run, that kind of thinking does more harm than good. It's not about helping people, it's about following a script, no matter the cost. From there, Maher zoomed out to show the bigger problem. We're not just dealing with political disagreements anymore, we're living in completely different realities, divided into ideological tribes. He broke it down into 4 main groups. First, there are old-school liberals like himself, who still believe in debate, reason, and individual freedoms. Then there are traditional conservatives, who value order, tradition, and national identity. But dominating the conversation now are the 2 extremes, the far left and the far right. And it's these extremes, Maher warned, that are pulling the country apart. The far left demands total ideological purity. The far right rejects anything even remotely progressive. And if you don't fully align with one side, both will accuse you of being the enemy. You're either completely in or totally out. There's no middle ground anymore. This kind of tribal thinking destroys nuance. It makes it impossible to agree on even the simplest facts. People aren't discussing ideas, they're defending their teams. And Maher sees this as one of the most dangerous developments in modern culture. When we care more about who's speaking than what's being said, reason goes out the window and what's left is just noise, outrage, and division. This tribalism isn't just fueling online arguments, it's shaping major policies and shutting down meaningful debate. Maher pointed to immigration and gender in sports as 2 clear examples of how ideology has replaced logic. The far left frames every issue through the lens of oppression. In this view, the United States is a nation built on colonization and injustice, and so it owes the world an open door, no questions asked. That's why any attempt to control the border or prioritize American citizens is immediately labeled as racist or xenophobic. It doesn't matter if the policy makes sense or protects national interests. If it conflicts with the narrative, it's rejected. The same goes for biological men competing in women's sports. Bringing up fairness, safety, or science isn't allowed because the only thing that matters is inclusion, no matter the consequences. Maher argued that this way of thinking forces people to deny what they know is true just to avoid backlash. Facts are treated as offensive. Common sense is labeled hate speech. And instead of helping people, this approach creates chaos and resentment. It's not about solving real problems anymore, it's about signaling virtue and punishing anyone who dares to disagree. This shift away from reality is exactly what, in Maher's view, opened the door for Donald Trump's rise. While the left was tangled up in guilt, censorship, and identity politics, Trump came in with a blunt, unapologetic message: be proud to be American. He didn't sugarcoat, didn't play by the rules of political correctness, and didn't pretend America was a nation defined by shame. And for millions of people tired of being told they were the problem, that message resonated. Maher made it clear he's no Trump fan, but he understands why Trump's message connected. While the far left was busy redefining morality and policing speech, Trump spoke directly to the frustrations of everyday Americans. And instead of addressing those frustrations, the left tried to silence him. Investigations, legal attacks, calls for jail time, they weren't just about Trump as a man, but about the threat he posed to the ideological machinery the left had built. It wasn't enough to beat him politically, they wanted to erase him. Because he challenged the narrative, he broke the script. And in doing so, he exposed just how fragile and authoritarian parts of the modern progressive movement had become. The conversation then shifted to foreign policy, where Maher pointed out what he sees as the most disturbing example of ideological blindness: the left's sympathy for terrorist groups like Hamas. He was stunned that people who claim to fight for human rights, women's equality, and LGBTQ, own freedoms, could, in the same breath, defend a group that stands against every one of those values. He laid it out plainly: if you think Hamas represents the oppressed, go live under their rule. Not during wartime, just a regular day in Gaza. Women have no rights. Gay people live in fear. Free speech doesn't exist. Meanwhile, Israel, despite all its flaws, protects those freedoms. So why is the woke left standing with Hamas? Because, Maher argued, they've become obsessed with identity over principle. In their eyes, Israel is Western and powerful, which makes it bad. Hamas is a brown, anti-Western group, which makes it good. This isn't moral clarity, it's moral confusion. The values the left claims to care about, freedom, equality, progress, are being tossed aside the moment they conflict with the victim-oppressor narrative. And that, Maher warned, shows just how deep the ideology has warped the ability to tell right from wrong. Sunny Hostin pushed back, bringing up the humanitarian crisis in Gaza, deaths of innocent civilians, the suffering of women and children, and the role of Israel in those tragedies. She even cited actions taken by the International Criminal Court against Israeli leadership. But Maher didn't back down. He acknowledged the tragedy, but reminded everyone that war is ugly, and this one didn't start unprovoked. He posed a direct question: do you believe Hamas should be destroyed? Because if the answer is yes, then you have to accept what that actually involves. Hamas hides behind civilians under hospitals, in schools, in dense urban areas on purpose. They use their own people as shields, banking on the world's outrage to stop any real retaliation. And it works because people let it. Maher explained that this kind of compassion, the kind that demands restraint from one side while excusing the brutality of the other, isn't just naive, it's dangerous. It gives terrorists exactly what they want: a way to attack, then hide, then cry foul when someone fights back. It's not empathy, it's manipulation. And the woke left, by falling for it, is enabling the very violence they claim to oppose. That's the core of Maher's final warning: when ideology blinds you to reality, you don't just lose the argument, you lose your grip on truth itself. The woke left has wrapped itself so tightly in a narrative of victimhood and moral superiority that it can no longer recognize when it's standing on the wrong side of a crisis. Supporting terrorist groups like Hamas in the name of justice, while ignoring their crimes against humanity, exposes just how deep the confusion runs. It's not about values anymore, it's about appearances. It's about siding with whoever fits the oppressed mold, even if they reject everything you claim to believe in. Women's rights, gay rights, free speech, these are supposedly sacred principles to the progressive left. But the moment those principles collide with identity politics, they're tossed aside like they never mattered. Maher made it crystal clear: the far left's obsession with guilt, optics, and ideological purity has led it into a moral dead end. If this continues, the only people left clinging to this worldview will be the most radical, the most deluded, and the most disconnected from reality. Everyone else will walk away, and the movement will collapse under the weight of its own contradictions. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Also, drop your thoughts in the comments. See you on the next one!